friend.
Hey everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Alison Rosen is your new best friend. I'm delighted to be here today with legendary comedian, actor, author, Laraine Newman. She was an original cast member of SNL. She was one of the founding members of the Groundlings. She's voiced characters that your children have definitely seen on shows and movies. And now she has an Audible original memoir coming out March 11th called May You Live in Interesting Times. Hello. Welcome.
Hello, Alison. Thank you for having me.
It's so nice.
I'm delighted to be here.
So I wanted to ask the process of doing a memoir, which you said you tried to do like 9 or 10 times, but knowing that it's just audio, what was that like?
Well, it was a whole different thing, but the chronology of how this worked, in my preface, I talk about how many times I try to rewrite. But the process was different once I was writing it for Audible because it had more practical needs, organize it chronologically, fact check, decide what I really don't need in it, which was plenty. And, and then from there, you work towards having a working script. It takes a long time because they do vet it, they do fact check it, they do punctuation and grammar and spelling, and then they go do legal, and then finally you get a recording script. But you write it in a way that it's going to be a vocal performance.
Right. So, what had been the challenge all those times before? And I say that I should acknowledge as a writer myself, like I completely get it. I have tried to write a true memoir so many times, and I haven't tried in a long time. But you had tried for years and years too. What was going on?
Well, the first draft was just, everything that I could think of. And then I did the rewrite, I read it again to see what needed to be done in the rewrite, knowing that that's just a part of the process. And it was bad. It was just, and then this happened. Mm-hmm. And I met them and they were really nice. And then we went there. I mean, it was so bad. So one of the hangups was that each time I attempted a rewrite, I'd write something that I really liked. Mm-hmm. But then I'd put it away because I'd hit a wall. And then so I had these 9 drafts with a bunch of stuff in each of them that I liked, but I wouldn't know how to find them. It's like, you must know what this is like, Alison. You've probably got a drawer with napkins and Post-its and places all over your house that you've written notes in because you're damn sure you're going to use it.
Yes. And also, I have a million disorganized computer files on my computer. Like, I have such admiration for people who open up their laptop or on their desktop or whatever, and they go into their folder, and then there's like 5 different folders, and it's like photos, videos, work stuff, da-da-da. Mine is just, my computer is like your first draft of just being like, bleh. So I can't find anything.
Oh my God, Alison, we're sisters.
Before we started, we were bonding over getting lost in parking garages because and I'm not proud of this, but I have panicked over, I can't figure out how, I'm just driving in a circle. I can't figure out how to get down.
Yeah. UCLA offers a course called mindfulness.
Is that what that is?
And it's as simple as that. You may think you're losing your marbles, probably not at your age, but certainly at mine. But really, it's just a matter of like parking your car and going, I'm on the 4th floor. I'm in section green, P2, or something like that. Or write it on a ticket,
right.
And you're golden.
Oh, I am realizing now you were talking about not being able to find your car in a parking garage. I'm talking about something 1,000 times worse. I want to go back to that Eden when we were sisters, as opposed to now where you're just going to feel sorry for me. Right. I'm talking about being in my car and literally not being able to leave the parking garage.
Oh, shit. No.
That's worse.
God. Yes, that's a bad feeling. You don't want your bleached bones in the farmer's market.
No.
You don't want that.
Yeah. But I'm going to try to find the way in which they're really similar when you think about it, because I believe probably mindfulness. I just know that at a certain point I was like, take a deep breath. You're going to figure it out. And then I did. So, I've been forged in a crucible just like you. So it sounds like, tell me if this is right, you had a pretty unusual, at times glamorous upbringing, but emotionally not fulfilling, not what you needed.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do talk about, because I'm learning all of this in therapy, how my parents, my dad was the typical 1950s dad. He worked all day. But also for the first 4 years of me and my twin brothers' lives, my mother was sick. Mm-hmm. So we really had very little contact with her. It wasn't her fault. But by the time she was able to interact with us, she had already had 2 other kids by the time she was 19. And then she had this set of twins when she was 30, and she was just done. She was not interested, and right. God bless her. There are moments where I understand that. Of course, being a parent, I became the opposite and became a helicopter parent. It was completely up my kids' butts. But, so I was alone a lot. And also, as I'm learning in therapy, Alison, that kind of neglect can constitute a trauma. It really sets in a child's sense of self-worth, et cetera, et cetera. But overall, it was a really fortunate upbringing in the sense that I had clothes, I had food, and shelter. Yeah,
I mean, those are and we should be thankful for that. But still, yes. I feel like kids need so much more.
I'll say, yeah.
And you said she was sick with, listening to the beginning of the book, my heart went out so much to you, and it also went out so much to your mom, having a child who lived 17 days and then
17 hours.
17 hours. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then as you point out, back in those days, like they didn't really understand grief counseling or postpartum. And so then she got a hysterectomy. Was that supposed to help her postpartum?
That was to treat the depression. I mean, come on. Why not just an Iron Maiden? Okay.
Right. It's barbaric.
But also she got hepatitis from the hospital. It was just, it was really hard for her.
Yeah. Yeah. So my heart definitely went out to her, but also you needed someone there.
Yeah. But she was also a very talented woman and really should have had a career. She did a lot of things. I mean, she was an interior designer. She built the Westwood Playhouse, which is now the Geffen.
Oh, wow.
And, was involved in the productions, quite a few great productions there. She wrote a cookbook. I mean, she did all sorts of things. She was interested and talented and was kind of, trying to reconcile that and her obligation as a parent.
Mm-hmm. So you became a helicopter parent. Like how?
Yes. Yeah. Well, first of all, I read all these baby books, ultimately realizing the only book worth reading is What to Expect When You're Expecting, because every other book is written to empower women in the delivery room, and it ends up scaring the shit out of you.
Yeah.
You just don't need that stuff. But, I was in my kids' faces. They weren't keeping me from doing anything I'd rather be doing. I watch shows like Pregnant at 16, and I feel so bad for those kids because, I would have liked to have the energy, but I wouldn't have been a good parent had I been younger.
Same. That's exactly what I say, that I'm really glad I waited because I needed to work out a lot of stuff. However, there is something to be said for the energy you have in your 20s because I don't even like to take a red eye anymore. I feel like it's like unsafe. I feel too out of it when I land. I mean, not that I've done anything remotely like that in a year, but back in the day, I remember deciding I was too old for red eyes.
Well, now with the pandemic and sheltering in space, if I go to the market and mail a letter, I've done something today, It's so different, man. Yeah.
How has your year been?
Well, in all honesty, this is how I live anyway. I really love being home. I love cooking and reading and especially watching TV. Boy, do I love watching TV. So this is basically, you know, I was very fortunate in that I worked all through the pandemic. My work could be done remotely. Netflix sent me, this is Netflix's equipment. But then I had to learn it, Alison, and that was tough, I'm telling you. Oh, my God.
For which show? Or do you do a bunch of Netflix shows?
I do. Yeah, and it's hard. I have to look at my IMDb. Some of them are for Nickelodeon, others are for Warner Brothers. But, yeah, 2 for Nickelodeon. The one that I'm doing now, it's been announced. It's called Ridley Jones, and it's for kids. And I don't know exactly when it's coming out, but we're recording our 2nd season. Well,
that is nice that you've been able to work this whole time and it hasn't affected you that much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also I consider myself an introvert. I consider myself I have reclusive tendencies. Like I'm fine going a number of days without seeing people. My younger sister, we lived together, and that's when I was like, oh, that's what it's so different. She's so different than I am in that she begins to just feel cooped up if it's been a few days of being by herself. And I'm like, no, I'm like just settling in a few days in. But this experience has made me realize the limits of that. Like I want the option of staying in while things are going on outside.
Yeah, but also you have the energy drain of small children.
That's true.
I shouldn't have used the word drain. That's pejorative, but
it is a drain. It is hard.
We need our breaks.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were on Kids Say the Darndest Things, Art Linklater show when you were 4, and you heard the laughter and it felt amazing. And then talk me through how you got into performing after that.
Well, I mean, there were, when I walked to school, I would tell the neighborhood kids stories that I made up, which were an amalgam of things I'd seen on TV. And then I started gaining a following, which was really exciting. Even big kids were in the group. And I was always afraid I'd be busted. You know, they'd recognize a plot from Caltiki or something and I'd be finished. But, there were school performances, there were camp performances. We put on an original show in our neighborhood. But I never thought I'm going to be an actress. I just thought this is the best fun ever. And the response that the audience gives me feels so good. I did, however, when I was probably really small, the theater that's on, Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood. It's a legit theater. It's been there forever. And I saw some production of like Prince Charming or something like that. And I went backstage and I saw the actors with all their makeup on and the way it all smelled and looked. And I thought, I want to be part of this world. You know?
What do you think? What about it appealed to you?
There was something magical about it. They seemed like unearthly creatures. And I always, my fantasies as a little kid, I always wanted to have superpowers. I dreamt that I could fly so often that I was convinced I could, which got my collarbone broken.
Yes, that story. And that it was like many hours until your parents realized, right?
Yeah, it was not reported by the babysitter.
Yeah.
But, it was, I wanted power and I wanted to be super smart and super beautiful and all the men loved me. I wanted Prince Valiant and Tom Hatton from the Popeye cartoon show. I just, I dug men so much. That's not changed. But anyway, that it just, I liked the idea of having some sort of asset, that I could exercise.
The word that came to my mind when I was imagining these actors and their makeup and wanting to be part of that world, the word in my mind was invincible. Like there's something to me invincible about an actor performing in his or her, in their role. that like while that production is going on, that world is safe and invincible and magical.
Yeah. What can I add to that? I mean, as a child, you can't really conceive of the otherness of being an actor. Mm-hmm. You only know what your response to it is, not what it would be like for the individual actor.
Right. And then what did you find it to be like?
Well, I always said that, fame means that you can always get change for $1. This was before you could use your credit card for a parking meter, but it can be so schizophrenic because you're either like a cultural icon to someone, or people don't recognize you at all. They recognize the famous friend that you're with, and say, "Would you take a picture with us?" It's like, sure. Oh, God, kill me.
Were you able to enjoy the height of your fame?
That's a mixed, that would be a mixed answer. Sometimes it was great, and we'd find ourselves in situations. I think when there was an IATSE strike, we shot one episode in Brooklyn, and the band was the musical guest. Mm-hmm. And so Gilda and I were up in the bleachers watching their sound check and just looking at each other like, God, we are so lucky. This is unbelievable. And the exposure to, the bands and the hosts and the parties we got to go to, the ones we were invited to, there are so many things that are fun but also kind of infantilizing for actors, where their path is smoothed out for them, ahead of them, so that they don't have to deal with stuff. First class, backstage pass, all this kind of stuff. And that's why I think a lot of people have a hard time when that goes away. Mm-hmm. I, having grown up in Los Angeles and seeing, actors that had been well-known and been on shows and then not being on them anymore, I saw what that was like. I knew that was something that an actor could expect. Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting to describe it as infantilizing. I hadn't thought of it that way. But yeah, I see it. But I mean, it is coddling in a way.
Oh, yeah.
At the same time, it sounds nice to only fly first class and to have everything and to have huge hotel rooms.
And have people imbue you with all these qualities that you don't even have. Right. Wonderful qualities that you wish you had, because there's a fantasy that, I don't know, some guy asked me, if you could have dinner with 3 people, who would it be? And I couldn't name anybody except like Barack Obama, because these people are strangers. Whoever I might admire, Skrillex, somebody, I don't necessarily want to have dinner with these people because I don't know them and they don't know me. Mm-hmm. And whatever expectation I might have of how happy they're going to be to meet me and talk to me, that's just not true,
Yeah. I mean, I do. That is sort of the dark side of all of this, is that realization that someone who appreciates your work might feel really close to you and they feel as if they know you through the work. And then I go, but do they really? Or is it a projection? I like to think, at least in podcasting, that they do.
Yes, because you can be more personal. You can be more exposed, for better or worse. It's coming off the top of your head. You're not saying anybody else's words but your own. Mm-hmm. So you get to be known to a certain extent because of this form.
Right.
But you're right. It is a projection with regard to people who are on camera. Mm-hmm. And let me just amend this thing about having dinner with famous people. It's not so much that I think they would be excited to meet me, but they would be as excited as I am to meet them. That's the thing. But, it's never true, really. Sometimes it is. I mean, sometimes people say that they're a fan of mine, and I'm flabbergasted. It's so exciting to me. I think the first time I had that happen, there was a cast party. Well, actually, it was at a party, and Woody Allen was there. Mm-hmm. And he came over to me and said, "You're the best thing on that show."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was thinking, gee, he watches this show. I'm amazed. But also, there was a cast party for the first movie I did while I was on SNL, which was American Hot Wax. And Smokey Robinson came up to me and said, I really love your Lena Wertmuller.
It's amazing.
It's that kind of stuff that's really wonderful.
Yeah.
And unexpected.
Yeah. So you said that you knew college wasn't for you because you had disliked school. And you wrote letters to a bunch of drama schools in London. So I'm curious about that process. But why did you not like school?
Well, other than the subjects I was interested in, I had a lot of trouble. I think I probably had learning disabilities. Mm-hmm. And because there was no name for that, I just felt this incredible confusion and anger and fear at the fact that everybody else seems to know what's going on and I don't, and I didn't necessarily think I was stupid. So I just felt kind of persecuted in a way that somehow they got, they were sent down from the Lord with an instruction book that I never got. So I just felt like, it would have been more of that. And I really wanted to do, I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So it was kind of that too.
So you wrote to schools in London. Was this, that just strikes me as so enterprising for a high schooler to do that. Did you have an adult helping you?
Yes, I had a therapist Joshua Hoffs, who was Susanna Hoffs' dad.
Oh, wow. I was such a Bengals fan.
Yeah, and he gave me really practical advice. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I never really knew what the name was for what I did because I wrote a lot of my stuff, but I was also in high school productions. Mm-hmm. So I guess that means an actor. And he said, well, do you know of any acting schools? And I said, I only know of the ones in England. So he said, write to the British consulate and get pamphlets for them. So that's what I did. It was because of him, really.
So you were already in therapy as a teen?
Oh, God, all through. Yeah, I was in therapy a lot.
Mm-hmm. What, was it, did the school?
Why does she lock her door?
Who had put you in therapy?
My parents.
Why?
Yeah. I literally, because I locked my door.
Oh, it
and
really
they
was
also,
because of that.
Yeah, and they knew I was doing drugs too.
Mm-hmm. And when did you start doing drugs?
When I was 13.
What was that like?
Well, it was, those scenes in movies where rays of light filter through clouds onto the horizon?
Yes.
It felt like that. All these bad feelings that I had all the time were immediately washed away. I had, all the guys who are listening to this right now, you can turn it off. I'm going to talk about my period for a second, just a second.
It's okay. They're used to it. I talk about it all the time.
All right. Well, I got monster cramps. They were awful. I mean, they were so bad that when I had my first daughter and I was dilated to 5 centimeters, I didn't need any drugs because it was like,
You're
yeah,
used to it.
I remember this. So, but I was prescribed something called Darvon. And someone said that if you take it apart, there is a little pink pill in the middle that is codeine and it'll make you high.
Oh, wow.
And Alison, I was such a nerd and such a good girl and obedient and every other aspect of my life, but I had no compunction about taking this thing. And it just, the feeling that I had was, it was just nirvana. It was just, finally, there was something that took away that bad feeling that made me feel embraced. I mean, a lot of times they describe opiates as feeling warm from the inside. Yeah. Warm from the inside, not hot, which is unpleasant, obviously, but warm.
Right.
And protected, and slightly removed from the situation, which was a wonderful place for me to be.
Yeah. So did you, Were you abusing the codeine?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And this was Beverly Hills High School. So, Less Than Zero is a really true book. And, drugs were abundant. They were available. But again, I wasn't doing serious drugs at that time. I moved on to marijuana and did that a lot and then tried psychedelics for a while. But that was really the limit. You know, I didn't try cocaine until I had come back from studying in Europe. And my parents wanted me to have a skill to fall back on, so I went to Sawyer Business College, and that's where I discovered Coke. So,
wow,
be careful.
Right. Be careful when
a trade school offers all sorts of delights.
I want to tell you guys about something I love, and that is the Purple mattress. I'm holding up a little sample of what it's made out of. It's really cool. The Purple is comfort reinvented. Only Purple has the Grid, which is a stretchy gel material that's amazingly supportive for your back and legs while cushioning your shoulders, neck, and hips. I don't know how it does it. It's just fantastic. And because of how it's designed, the Grid doesn't trap air. Air is able to flow through it, so you don't get hot all night. The Grid bounces back as you move and shift, unlike memory foam, which remembers everything. And that's why memory foam has craters and divots. Look, I don't know about you, but I don't want my mattress remembering everything. I want my mattress to have selective memory, like me at this point. Right now, you can try your Purple mattress risk-free with free shippings and returns. Financing is available too. Look, you guys, the world is becoming increasingly uncomfortable. You want your bed situation to be a haven. You want it to be the ultimate comfort. Purple really is comfort for an uncomfortable world. Right now, you'll get 10% off any order of $200 or more. Go to purple.com/bestfriend10 and use promo code bestfriend10. That's purple.com/bestfriend10, promo code bestfriend10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. Purple.com/bestfriend10, promo code bestfriend10. Terms apply. So you went to London for your final round of auditions and didn't get into any of the schools. And is this right? You talked to your mom and she had a recommendation for you.
Yeah, she recommended that I go at least look at Marcel Marceau's school because I had already studied mime since the age of 16, mime and improv. So I went. And I really wanted him to say no because I was scared. I didn't want to have to move somewhere where I didn't really speak the language, although I caught on pretty quickly. But it was a great experience. I was there for a year.
I mean, that just seems like so you were what, 18, 19?
Yes, 18.
To all of a sudden go off to Paris to study mime with Marcel Marceau. I feel like kids these days don't do it. Kids of any day don't do that kind of thing, but especially now they don't. I mean, that just seems it's so worldly. It's so fancy and worldly.
Well, I mean, we were a middle-class family, but I had enough money to live cheaply, and I had a roommate and our apartment was literally a concierge's converted office. It was really small. And it had, right next to the kitchen was the shower, which also contained the toilet because there's this thing they call the Turkish torture, which is literally a place for your feet and a hole so that you have to squat, know. And that was right next to the kitchen. Yay.
Appetizing.
Yay.
So did that for a year. And were you thinking that you would, what were you thinking you would do after that?
Well, see, I've been realizing that I've had to say this in a lot of the interviews I'm doing. I'm not a big picture kind of person. I just always followed my interests. I followed the things that I was really, really fascinated by. And that always led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's really, I think, why I seem to have the luck and the serendipity to be at meaningful moments in pop culture, whether it be, living in Los Angeles and the British invasion and the accessibility. I mean, I saw the Beatles twice and, there were clubs where you could see everybody,
Right.
you know, and then when the Comedy Store opened, which was really the first of its kind, it was the first club that had exclusively stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
No music, nothing, just stand-up. So I witnessed that. I witnessed this whole kind of growth and burst of comedy, saw all the stuff that was going on in town. And then we, at the same time, were starting the Groundlings.
Is that where you were had to do Trust Falls? Was that the Groundlings?
Yes.
Can we talk
We only
for a
had to
moment?
do it once.
Let's talk for a moment about Trust Falls, because I also detest Trust Falls. I'm not sure that it really I'm not sure it does what it's supposed to do, but do you know, does that still happen nowadays, or was that a specific moment in time?
I couldn't speak to that. I have no idea, but I can bet you that they don't do it in the Groundlings now.
Right.
They don't have a wall to fall off of. You know, this was the Cellar Theater on Vermont before we moved to the Oxford and then moved to Melrose.
So I know a little bit about how you got into SNL. Lauren had hired you to be in a Lily Tomlin special, right?
Yes.
And then how did that translate into being, in the first iteration of SNL?
He was hired to create a show for Carson reruns, I think on Saturdays. And they just let him do whatever he wanted. And so he went looking for performers, and he came back to the Groundlings. And he actually offered it to several other people in the company, but they turned it down because they thought, for various reasons, they turned it down. But I was game. Again, it was like I was just following the things that were exciting and interesting to me. And I don't mean that to sound cavalier.
No, it doesn't.
I was very excited about it.
I don't think that sounds cavalier. And I think that is now advice given to people who are trying to figure out what to do. Like, well, what excites you? Follow your passion. You did this way back before everyone else discovered it.
Well, now also it really pays to be, and I think most kids are very entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. You know, both my kids do stand-up, and they create their own shows where they book the talent and find the venue. You know, I mean, 25 and 22, these kids are doing this.
Right.
They have all these tools like YouTube and the iPhone to make, their own content. It's just, they've really got the power. They've got the power.
So how is that, having children who are doing comedy? And do you weigh in? Do you hold back?
Only if they ask me. They have the aptitude for it. They're both really talented, more talented than I ever was, and which is a joy for me. And they both have incredible minds, very unique minds and approaches. And I think part of it was because when I drove them to grammar school, we're talking like kindergarten, first grade, all the through, I was playing Patton Oswalt and Maria Bamford and the Sklar brothers for them. And I encouraged them to read as much as they could and see if this is what they wanted to do. I encouraged them to see everything they could possibly see so that they would not do that, that they would do something entirely different. And they sure as hell did.
That's great.
Very proud of them.
How do they live? Do they still live here?
The younger one lives here. The older one lives in Brooklyn.
Have you been able to see the older one during this year?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Not during the pandemic, no, but FaceTime. That's it.
You've been able to quote unquote see.
Yeah, and Spike is my older child's name, and they're non-binary, so I refer to them as them. And they've started their own business. So even though they're on an HBO show, when they're not filming, they're a dog walker. They have their own business. They're doing really well. They don't need anything from me. Neither of them do.
That's great.
But I did talk to Al Franken the other day, and he was telling me what his kids were doing. And it was just so much like public service. And I was thinking, I'm a failure.
God, I hadn't even of all the things that I want my children to be, I hadn't even thought of like, and I've got to instill public service works as a thing.
Yeah, well, it becomes a requirement in high school.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have it on your college application. And with Spike, I knew that she loved Patton Oswalt. So I was just kind of sniffing around, finding out stuff I could about him. And I saw that he got involved in something called 826 LA, which was a literacy advocacy program in Venice. And it was not on the list of so-called, public service stuff for their high school, but it was able to be put on there. And they worked there, they tutored there for a year. And it was really great on their application.
I bet. So I wanted to ask a couple questions about specifically those 5 seasons on SNL. Well, actually, let's go to the end first, because you and I were talking about how I'd had Bobby Moynihan on last week.
Yeah.
And he chose to leave after 9 seasons. I'm always curious about that decision to leave. What made you decide to leave?
Well, our contract was for 5 years.
Okay.
And it had been 5 years and Lorne was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wanted to do it without him. The network approached each of us individually asking if we wanted to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I didn't. I really wanted to go home.
Yeah. How was the schedule just as grueling back then as I always hear about? Just the staying up all night?
Nothing has changed. It's so interesting to me. I hear, past and current cast members talk about the schedule. I remember years ago hearing Andy Samberg describe the schedule, and I'm thinking, man, it's exactly the same. And then Fred Armisen and Cecily Strong, same thing. They both said, this is what happens. And I'm like, man, it's just how it was.
Mm-hmm. That must have been hard, except you had that young 20-something energy.
Yeah. And also we were being allowed to do stuff that made us laugh. And that's a really wonderful gift. And it also feels very special that we're getting that freedom. And look at, they're putting us on television doing it.
Yeah.
It was a great feeling.
Did you invent our idea of Valley Girl?
Oh my God, you're putting me in a position of humble bragging. And, it's like that's a claim to fame. But yeah, I guess I did the first one, yes.
Because you did that.
And you're welcome.
Thank you.
Kill me.
You did that in your audition, right? Because that's on YouTube. It's like a SNL screen test, and it's Sherry.
Yeah, it's the monologue from the Groundlings that was eventually used in the Godfather group therapy sketch on SNL. But that was a piece that I did in the Groundlings.
Right. And you talked a little bit in the book about the difference between the Valley Girl as it was understood then that you did versus the one, like the thing they're doing in the Californians.
The Californians, yeah. It's a different thing entirely.
And I remember noticing the sort of how that was morphing. Can you explain that a little bit? Like, what is the difference?
Oh, my God. I let me think about that. Well, first of all, I was listening to NPR one day and they were talking about dialects in the country and the fact that, like the Boston pronunciation of ka and things like that are an affectation. It was not a corruption of an existing accent from point of origin for immigrants. But in the case of the Valley dialect, they were talking about how it's kind of now become all over the country that people are talking like that. And it's just kind of a slackness of the jaw, people not crossing their T's verbally. So it's almost like a corruption of regional accents. I mean, people who are from really regional places still have wonderful, fascinating accents. But overall, in urban areas, people have gotten really so much to sound that way to some degree. I mean, the interrogative lilt at the end of sentences like, I thought I'd do this. And then he said this, that I think is definitely, the infection that started with the Valley speak.
Right. I think I noticed the first time I was like, wait, this used to be different. Is it called Mall Girls, or the like Chris Farley, David Spade, was it Adam Sandler, when they're in a mall and they're like, oh my God.
Oh, well,
which is different than how you did it.
Yeah, I broke down the dialect in the book. There are a lot of things that make up that Valley accent. You know, we have the Spanish influence because it's a Spanish land grant state. Mm-hmm. And people coming, and it was Mexico, people coming from the Dust Bowl. But I noticed that there was like a glottal L to begin with. So words like really would become Roy and probably would be proy, you know, and the ing endings would be een, like I'm going and I'm starting instead of starting.
Right.
And of course, contractions were fun. Wouldn't was wouldn't. And couldn't was cunt.
And you mention when you were on the California, you came onto the Californians as, is it Kristen Wiig's mom?
Yes.
And you were going to say cunt, but then you chickened out. How come?
I just thought it would have been really selfish. And I didn't know what it would have done, you know, to the show, because that's certainly a word that is not used. I mean, God knows they bleep out a lot of stuff, and we know perfectly well what word they're saying, but I've never heard them bleep that out.
Right.
You know, so I was ambivalent because, yeah, I wanted to do it for the fun of it, but I really thought that it might have been damaging to the show, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. The Exorcist 2 sketch with Richard Pryor that I was just like crying laughing at. But why? So I know that. So you play the girl who's possessed. Yeah,
Reagan.
I couldn't remember if it was Reagan or Regan. And by the way, I've never even with my eyes seen The Exorcist. It was played at a slumber party I went to, and I hid under a blanket the entire time, and it still scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. I don't know if I could handle it now. I don't think I could. But anyway, you play the main character. And Chevy Chase did the voice when she's possessed, though. But why?
Because I had to be body mic'd. And there's a part where Richard Pryor has to throttle me. And his hands would have banged against the mic.
Got it.
And made a bad sound. And boy, did I want to do that voice.
Yeah, I bet.
You know. Your mother sews cocks in hell. Wait a minute. Socks. It's socks, okay? Really wanted to do it, but we couldn't.
Yeah. Oh, that's disappointing. But he got a line wrong. Is that right? Yeah.
And, of course, it made it look like it was my mistake that I was mouthing the wrong thing, but I think he was just messing with me.
I looked at your website, and I saw that you're a big Coachella fan.
Very, very big fan. Yes, I love Coachella. I mean, I've been going since 2010 when it was only one weekend and it was 2 days and you could buy a ticket for a single day if you wanted to. And it was a really well-kept secret. And I had a friend, an ex-boyfriend whose daughter was in a band that was playing there. So he was dialed. He told me where to stay and do the shuttle and the whole thing. Although the first year I wasn't hip to that. And boy, was that a misery. Because it is literally a mile to the entrance of Coachella. Have you been there?
I went, not to sound extremely cool or anything, but I did go the very, very first year. But just for one day or one night.
Who was playing?
It was Rage Against the Machine, and I can't remember anyone else. That's all I remember. No. Rage Against... Who else
I know they played when I was there. So maybe they played twice.
Probably,
but the first one, I think, was in 1999.
That's the year that I went.
When you were 2.
Yes. That's right. I was 2. I'm very young. So yes, some of my references seem older than I could possibly be given how young I look, but still. Speaking of looking young, I have to ask, this is just now a selfish question, but I'm just always curious about it. You mentioned that you you resisted getting a nose job, even though a lot of your peers were doing that. But then ultimately you did.
Yeah.
And I've shared this on the show, but I've had no work, but I have been like fantasizing about nose jobs and curious about them and looking at pictures since I was 15. I feel like if I was going to do it, I would have done it before, but I still I find myself thinking about it like all the time. What was your experience with it? And why did you finally do it?
Well, as you age, the cartilage in the tip of your nose breaks down. And that's why, Crohn's and older people are depicted as having hooked noses. And I knew that was in my future, and I'd always hated it. And, it was like, let's put on a new hat, But what I've learned about any kind of work is that you lose one problem, but you gain another. It's like now my nose is wider than it was. Mm-hmm. And so it's always I think that right now I probably would have had it done a little better.
Right. Did you experience happiness somewhere on the spectrum of happy to elation over how your nose looked?
Yeah, I was happy with it. I was very happy with it. There are times when it looks really like a nose job, but there are other times when it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And I'm really grateful for that. And also I've aged into it, so it looks more natural.
And the pain?
No, it's no pain.
No pain.
No, and who's afraid of pain?
Me sometimes, but maybe.
Well, if you watch RuPaul's Drag Race, you know that to be beautiful, you have to suffer.
Yeah, there's this account that this is how much I'm like still, I'm like somewhere between an enthusiast and aficionado of other people's nose jobs. There's an account that I follow, and it's this woman sort of charting her rhinoplasty journey. And right now it's still swollen. She's a handful of weeks out and it's really swollen. And she's really worried about something called polybeak, which I had not even heard of.
I don't know what
it's like, is. She's in England. So maybe it's when it heals, but you have sort of a roundness, like
a parrot? Almost like,
yeah. So she's really worried about that. And it seems like she's regretting it a little bit.
Has she had more than one?
No, this is her first one. I think.
Now I got to look it up. You got to tell me what that is so I can take a look at it because I'm curious.
I'll send it to you after. I'll send it to you on Instagram. Okay, so you leave SNL after 5 years, and then what did you do?
Fuck all. Really, I didn't know what to do, but things kind of fell in my lap, and I had a really good agent. So I never really, the only years up until now since SNL that I didn't work were the years I had my children. Mm-hmm. So very good packaging at ICM, a wonderful agent, Michael Black and Iris Grossman. They kept me working. But I was also doing, live shows that were really fun, but didn't make any money. Mm-hmm. But they were great experience. I mean, I did things that I really benefited from, but they were kind of, I guess what you would call alternative, like a show that we did in the Blossom Room at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel called The Hollywood Primary. And it was a political comedy review with sketches. And, Chevy was in it and Chris Guest, and it was all these wonderful people. And then I went back to the Groundlings and took classes there for a while and came up with some new characters. And there was a performance for that, which scared the shit out of me.
Why?
Well, because I felt like there would be an expectation that I would be something spectacular, which I didn't feel I was. And especially seeing the new talent that was coming up, they were just so dazzling. So I felt I had a lot to prove.
See, I'm wondering if you think they were intimidated by you, given that this is Laraine Newman from SNL and founding member of the Groundlings.
Well, I only know what I thought. And what I thought had to have been what they thought.
I can relate.
You know what
I
mean?
Yes.
Being ironic there. Because everybody feels the same way I do about everything.
I mean, maybe they do.
Oh, no!
No, I don't think so. When did you get sober?
1987. Didn't know I was going to get AA but it was the only thing, because I had tried to stop using before that, and it's the only thing that really worked.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great community. It's a great way of living. It's basically, tell the truth. When you fuck up, own up to it. Be kind. Be of service. It's a great way to live. And I knew I was finished. I was never one of those people that thought I could quit anytime I want. I knew that I was an addict from the very first.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't want to stop. And then when I wanted to, it was really hard because it's an obsession,
What was the substance you were using at that point?
Cocaine. I was a specialist. Some people call themselves a garbage can because they'll take anything, but I never drank alcohol. I never liked the taste, and I didn't like what it did. It just affected my body, but never my mind. And that was the goal. So, I just did Coke, and in order to come down, if I couldn't get like Quaaludes, remember Quaaludes, or things like that, I would just read and eat. That's how I would come down. But yeah, it was just cocaine. And I had someone in the neighborhood who delivered and took checks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Checks. Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm.
You said that when you were done, you wanted to be done. What made you want to be done?
I had an audition, which is always a trauma. And it was one more abysmal, humiliating thing. And my agent, Michael Black, called me afterwards and said, "How did it go?" And I said, "I was terrible." He said, "Good. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, because I got to tell you, honey, they called me and asked me what was wrong with you." And I realized that this last thing that took me out into the world, which was my work, that door was going to close to me if I didn't do something, and I would be totally shut out of the world. So, I did what was suggested, and put one foot in front of the other, and it really worked.
What had happened at that audition that made them call him? Sorry to make you relive this.
Oh, God damn it, Alison. I mean, first of all, I knew the director. So my way of ingratiating myself with him was to kind of bond with our mutual dislike of someone. Now, this is bad-mouthing someone in front of the casting director.
Yeah.
It was just obnoxious. And then my reading just was terrible because I'm not good at auditions. So it was a wonderful combo of me being an obnoxious asshole and a lousy performer.
I keep reading reviews of various SNL oral history books, and they talk about how it seems that everyone, or maybe it's just two different books, but I read a few reviews of these two different books. And in the early days, to hear people tell it, Chevy Chase was just very hard to work with. Was that your experience of him?
No. But I can't say how it was for the guys. It might have been a different thing entirely. But Chevy was always lovely to the girls. He was always nice. He wasn't abusive in any way. I mean, it was the cast was wonderful. I realized this in doing press for this book is nobody ganged up on anybody. And there were never cliques, which is remarkable when you think about it, because it's just like a group of people, but it's like a lifeboat that you're all, contributing to this effort to survive, and also coming from an improv background, it's all about supporting the other actor.
Right.
So that we're really fortunate that way, that we all were at least polite to one another.
That is wonderful. What was your relationship with Gilda like? I know that you have said that you were never as close with her after as you were during your time at SNL.
Yeah. Gilda was wonderful. She's a wonderful person and so loving to me and so supportive and affectionate, except when she had a boyfriend, and then nobody saw her, But as hard as she worked, she was very kind to me and everybody. And we had situations during the show, which is in the book, where she and I were caught in some pickles. I'll tell you, Alison, we were in a couple of pickles together. And she always made them great. And she always made me feel special and loved. She would make a big deal about people that she cared about. She would give parties for people and birthday parties and things like that. And even after the show ended, I would find a present on my doorstep on my birthday, even though I haven't talked to her in maybe, a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lovely thing to do.
Yeah. Are you like that?
I can be, yeah. Yeah, when I remember. But yeah, I do give a lot more presents now than I used to.
Mm-hmm.
And people are always amazed by that. And I write thank you notes, which people are also amazed by. I've tried to get my kids to write thank you notes. It's so important to me.
Yes, I can remember my mom really crawling up my butt about thank you notes. But you're right. And I feel like now it's really, you really don't see them that much.
No, and people can email or text them, which is at least something.
Something.
But I still have to, well, not anymore, but I did have to ride them a lot to get them to do it. They're very much more mature now and do it on their own.
All right, let's do Just Me or Everyone.
Sometimes I ponder on something I have thought or done. Is it just me or everyone?
Okay, so Laraine, you have one or a million, right?
Yeah. The one I think I'll talk about, and if I think of the other ones, that'll be good if I remember them. But, and especially because of the pandemic, I'm watching more TV than ever. And I start acting the roles as I'm watching them. Or if there's something going on in a plot, I'll talk to the TV. Like, this always drove me crazy in Walking Dead when the horde of zombies is right on their necks, but somehow someone has to make a speech. That kind of shit drives me crazy. And it's that way for everything. The radioactive ray is going to hit the surface of the moon and we got to go. But someone's taking a long, smoldering, lingering look. Why?
I know. But what else have you been watching? I have to, okay. I don't think I begin to act things out. I think I do a little bit talk back to the screen. So I think that's probably everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody talks back to the screen.
What else have you been watching?
Oh my God. Well, I love horror. So I've been watching Eli Roth's History of Horror, which was great. Oh my God. I watch so many things. I watch a lot of Nordic, Swedish crime dramas.
Oh.
A lot of foreign stuff, which is really Call My Agent from France is such a great show. Oh, but I've been watching For All Mankind and, oh my gosh, Ricky Gervais's show Afterlife. I just could go on and on, my dear.
These are all respectable choices. I've just been sucked into the world of Bravo's Below Deck. Do you watch any reality?
I watch some reality. But it really, what is Below Deck? What is that about?
Oh, it's about the ups and downs of a ragtag group of people who work on a chartered yacht. So,
oh man, so relatable.
Yeah, really, the whole thing is so relatable. So they work on the chartered yacht though, but then it also focuses on the guests that come on the chartered yacht. But it's really about it's like the deck crew and then the interior crew and the chef. And the captain and how they relate.
Hierarchies, upstairs, downstairs.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
It's really good. I was into Vanderpump Rules and then I hadn't been into reality in a long time. And then I got sucked into this and it's what I watch every night. I stay up too late watching it.
I have heard people talking about that show.
It's pretty good.
But I like shows that involve skill like Project Runway and Great British Baking Show. Mm-hmm. And all the people on that are so nice. I have a problem with the sob stories.
Yes.
I like The Voice, but, I'm doing this for my grandmother who died 3 years ago.
Yes. And they have to start that. Everything starts with that speech.
Yeah. And I record it and then I just scan it.
Right.
It's like, just let me hear you sing. I just want to hear you sing.
Yeah, we get it. We get it. Your character has a point of view. You have an arc. Okay. So, let's see. Shaylee says, I get irrationally annoyed when I go to someone's profile to find a specific tweet or post, only to realize that they're way too active on social media and it would take 20 minutes of scrolling to find what I'm looking for, just me or everyone.
So
go ahead.
Is she saying that there was something she saw posted and then didn't respond immediately, or there were so many responses that she had to scroll?
I think she's saying she remembers a tweet or post and she wants to go find it. And then she goes to go find it, and it's like there's no way she's gonna find it because this person has 8 million tweets.
That is so annoying. It's terrible.
I have this with myself. If I want to find something I tweeted, and then I'm like, my God, how many tweets?
Yeah.
Where is it? Okay. Lisa Lowry says, sort of an embarrassing JMOE, just be everyone. I check my visual weight loss status on my Ring cameras as I come and go, get a better perspective of me in my natural habitat. I have done this. I have been like, oh my God, that's what that angle of me looks like. Well, this is a rude awakening. So I've done that before.
I've surrendered all vanity, Alison.
Of course you have.
Going to be 69, and I'm tired. I just I love food. I'm very overweight.
You don't look overweight at all.
Guys, I have a small head. I have a small face, but yeah, it's a behemoth from the neck down.
I don't see any weight here.
Trust me.
Okay. I mean, maybe it's an angle situation, but
it's totally an angle. I know what I'm doing. Whoops. I couldn't, as everything falls apart.
Have you really surrendered all vanity? Because I have to tell you, and again, I'm very, very young, but each birthday, I'm like, I am too old to care this much what other people think. And I mean, it's been like 10 years of saying that to myself, but still, I mean, incrementally, I'm getting closer and closer to like, I don't know, a better place, but it's hard.
Well, of course, I was kidding when I said I've surrendered all vanity.
Yes.
I'm terribly vain. I still am. I wish I wasn't. But, I get tired. So it really takes a lot for me to put on makeup. God forbid, a bra. There's no way I'm wearing high heels for the rest of my life. And God damn it, I just love eating. So, you have to be willing. And I'm not going to chronicle my weight. I'm just not going to do it unless I'm actually trying to lose weight. But I'm just not doing that right now.
Yeah, the bra thing, and I am wearing one now. It's just a little thing I do when I do the show most of the time. However,
I'm so flattered.
Yeah, please feel supported by my support. But I was thinking of taking my son on a walk today, and then I thought, but then I'd have to put on a bra, and then I thought, nah.
Well, see, I'm not wearing one, and I have a black shirt on, so
I can't even tell.
Right, that's the idea.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Shannon Hurley says, even though I shave my legs regularly, I change my razor about once a year. Just me or everyone. No, I change it more often than once a year.
Well, I found these eyebrow razors, and I am very hairless. I mean, I would only need to pluck my legs and underarms, but I use this little eyebrow razor and just do my underarms and my lower legs, which is the only place that has hair.
And you've always been hairless like this?
Pretty hairless, yeah.
How lucky you are.
And I also have beautiful feet, Alison.
Wow.
Very beautiful feet.
What size are? I don't want to like get into wiki feet territory, but what size are your beautiful feet?
They're 7s, but the toes are equal. There's no deforming of the toes. I have gorgeous feet. And that is it.
That's wonderful.
All she wrote.
How wonderful for you. Because I remember a friend of mine years ago being like, I have really cute feet. Do you want to see? And I'm like, sure. And she did. She had very cute feet. So
yeah, you never think about that.
It's great that you can see how cute your feet are. Wessam says, getting into bed makes me legitimately happy. Yes. Same.
God, yes.
It's my
yes.
favorite part of the day.
I appreciate it so much. And I've gotten my bed to the point where I don't know if you've watched those old time black and white movies where people have quilts that are all satin.
Oh, I don't think I have.
They're very hard to find. And I finally found it. So I've got sheets that are really soft, pillowcases that are really soft. And now I have my satin blanket and it's just heaven.
Where did
Every time I found it at Bloomingdale's.
There you go.
But I just, every single night I get into bed and I'm just like, I've earned this.
That's how I feel when I get into bed. I also do sometimes even an audible, and then I think, why did I wait so long to get in? Because I have a going to bed too late problem recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, why? I could have just done this a few hours earlier. I was tired. What was worth staying up for? But what was worth it was Below Deck. But I mean, not really worth it when I consider how great it feels to get into bed. And also a lot of mornings, this isn't just me or everyone. Back when I had a more normal schedule, I would be in the shower and I would think just X many hours and I can get back into bed. And that was the thought itself was sort of depressing to me. Shouldn't I relish my day on earth a little more?
Yes, Alison, and I think you should judge yourself that you're not doing that.
Thank you.
I've noticed since the pandemic, I'm staying up later than I ever have.
Mm-hmm.
It gets it's the next thing I know, it's 2 a.m.
And
but if I go to bed too early, I'll wake up during the night and not be able to go back to sleep. Isn't that an interesting story?
It's quite a conundrum.
It is.
Yeah. Laraine Newman, it was so delightful having you on the show. Thank you so much.
This was so fun, Alison. Thank you.
On March 11th, it's available for pre-order. So right now, everyone should go get May You Live in Interesting Times, your Audible original audiobook. I will put a link to it in the episode notes of this show. And then also, your publicist wanted me to mention something.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted me to mention that in addition to that, you can also watch you in conversation with, is it Alan Zweibel or Zwiebel? Zweibel. I should have stuck with my first instinct. Just want to make it clear, I know who he is. I just was doubting the pronunciation. You'll be in conversation with Alan Zweibel at the 92nd Street Y, and that is available to people anywhere. Yes, they can go see that.
I can't wait for that. That's going to be great.
Yeah, that sounds great. Tell everyone what else they should look for you in, or plug anything else you'd like to plug.
Well, they'll hear my voice in, American Dad, SpongeBob, Ridley Jones, Talking Tom. And I don't know if they'll recognize it. I've had friends that say that their kids from another room recognize my voice. So that means I'm not doing my job. But you'll hear me. I'm not in anything on camera right now. I did an episode of Los Spookies, but that was last year.
Oh, cool. I like that show. Nice. And you're on social media as at Laraine Newman, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Great. Twitter. And I am on Twitter and Instagram at Alison Rosen. If you like what you're hearing, please make sure you're subscribed. Tell a friend. I'm begging you. This is me on my hands and knees begging you. Please leave a review because that helps people find the show. 5 stars. Please, that's how you feel. I don't want to force your hand or anything, but I'm just saying this feels like a 5-star situation right now. Also,
I'm on
Patreon, patreon.com/Alison Rosen. Bonus episodes every week, Zoom parties, all sorts of fun stuff. Patreon.com/Alison Rosen. I'm also on Cameo, and I have an Amazon store, which I've spent way too much time curating. So you can go there and you can shop my podcasting equipment. I have all the makeup that I use, all the beauty stuff for kids, stuff for the home. And that is Amazon.com/shop/Alison Rosen. Amazon.com/shop/Alison Rosen. And also, as I should have said at the very beginning of this show, if you're listening to it, you can actually see the whole thing. You can go see this. YouTube.com/Alison Rosen. YouTube.com/Alison Rosen. Again, Laraine, thank you so much. This was so fun.
This was so fun. Thanks a million.
I really enjoyed talking to you. Listeners, thank you for listening. You matter. I love you. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Alison Rosen Show? time, but now we gotta go. Yeah, Alison, Rosen.